Okay, welcome everyone. I am Erica Knowles, and I am excited to be here with my DECAL friends today. I have been working with Civitas Strategies for a little over almost 2 years now. So we're excited to be here to go over a very, very important topic. Today, we are going to talk about the digital world and the importance of what that can and does for your childcare business, as well as what it can also harm in your childcare business. You are very, very well versed in protecting your physical environments for your childcare. And today we're going to talk about that digital side and learning and making sure that you are well protecting the your childcare business on that side as well. You handle critical information every single day, and whether that be from children's medical records to family details, and those things you definitely don't want to get out into the public or into somebody's hands that it's not supposed to be. So over the next hour or so, we're going to go through some strategies to help you secure that digital space for your childcare business. We will conclude with some time for a question and answer session. So if you have questions throughout this webinar, please hang on to them. And once we come back together for the Q&A at the end, we will go through all of your questions, okay? Wonderful. So, quick disclaimer before we get started. The information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies and is not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civitas Strategies team has used reasonable efforts in collecting, preparing, and providing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, completeness, adequacy, or currency. The publication and distribution of this information is not intended to create, and receipt does not constitute an attorney-client or any other advisory relationship. Reproduction of this information is expressly prohibited. Only non-commercial uses of this work are permitted. I do want to just quickly say in the chat, Aaron put a little note in there. If you could please add your name and your Georgia PDS number, that would be very helpful so that we can make sure you get credit for being here. Okay, let's talk about what we're going to go over today. We've designed this webinar to be very practical, to be very specific for you, childcare business owners or managers. We're going to start off by understanding what cybersecurity is. And I promise I'm not going to use any technical jargon or anything like that. I was a director for 18 years, so I get it. We're not IT people. We're then going to talk about some protective measures that you can do and utilize right away to help you in your childcare business, even on a limited budget, even when you don't have tons of money, because let's be real, who does? You will hopefully learn to be able to and learn the importance of training your staff. They are your first line of defense. So it's very, very important that they understand how to protect this sensitive information. We're also going to cover what to do if something goes wrong, because again, let's be honest, a lot of times something goes wrong. I just read an article. My children use Power School at their school, and I just read that Power School was just hacked all over the country. So I don't know exactly what somebody would want with a 10th graders records, but apparently that happened. So by the end of this webinar, you will hopefully have a clear understanding and also some actionable steps that you can take to help protect your business and the children in your care, and ultimately the families as well. So let's look at first how technology has transformed childcare in recent years. As I said, I was a director for 18 years, and I know many of you on this call have also been in childcare for many, many years. we can all see the differences that technology has, changed in the many ways in the childcare world. Understanding these changes really helps us see the importance of cybersecurity and how it is truly essential to your business. Digital record keeping has largely replaced file cabinets and files in all of the boxes, thank goodness, right? Where you once had tons and tons of boxes, a lot of times now people have, that digitally. So it's not necessarily in that paper form anymore all the time. Think about it, the importance of locking a file cabinet as that's a licensing requirement that those files had to be locked up. It's also a licensing requirement that those files have to have a lock on them, even if they're digitally. Yes, I still also would keep hard copies as well. But a lot of people have switched a lot into their Dropbox or their cloud or whatever. Online payment systems have made things so much easier. They've kind of revolutionized how you collect tuition and fees. For many of you, gone are the days of chasing down parents. A lot of providers are able to get that credit card or debit card information and have it on file. Yes. And just every week that money automatically comes out of their account, and you don't have to chase them down. Parent communication has also gone digital. Gone are the days of the daily paper, the daily report. Everything is usually right now, very, very digitally sent back and forth to the families. Digital learning, your lesson planning, your curriculum, all of those things are now online. Almost, if you work in a center, most centers and some homes as well, you have a tablet, you have, that digital way for not only you to communicate with the families, but sometimes for the children to be able to learn and grow as well. So all of these digital tools, while they have been wonderful to make our lives and your lives a lot easier, there really is and could be a downside if you are not secure in the way that you are handling those. So again, for your safety, for your children's safety and the families as well, you just like you check to make sure that your doors are locked at the end of the night, you need to be checking to make sure that you are also making sure that your digital files are locked as well. So understanding the risks is very important. Not to scare you, but there are some risks. And again, it's very important that you understand that it is your responsibility as the childcare business manager / owner, depending what your position is, to understand those risks. So let's talk about that. So what is really at stake? A lot, right? So we talked about some of it. Every day, families trust you not only with their children, dropping them off every day, but also with the wealth of information that they have given to you. You can think about some of the data that whether that be their personal details, obviously, their address, all of those things. That's very important. But so are the medical records. If they have a medical history, their vaccination records, their emergency contacts, their payment information. Like I just said, a lot of times you all are now able to have that payment information on file, which helps tremendously, but you need to make sure that nobody else gets that information or gets in the wrong hands. It could have serious consequences for the families that you serve. You could also have IEPs and custody paperwork and all of those things. The list goes on and on and on for sensitive information that you need to make sure stays where you want it to or where it was intended to be, which is in your hands and not somebody else's. Your reputation, we talk about this in small study groups a lot, but your reputation, that communication, that relationship that you have with the families is so important. So this is just another way to make sure that they trust you and understand that you care and that you care about protecting their privacy. A security breach really could do damage to that relationship that you spend so much time building with your families. So, some common cyber threats. You don't have to be an IT or a tech expert to understand cyber threats. Again, you can kind of think of them as any other safety risk in your business. Just as you have to do playground checks to, check and make sure that those things are safe, you need to also be doing preventative digital checks as well. The most common threat that you're going to face is phishing, and that's not with an F, that's with a PH, which are fraudulent emails trying to trick you into revealing sensitive information. Um, Personal story, it just happened to my husband over Christmas. He got a text from UPS saying that a package was stuck in customs, and we were waiting on a package that we had ordered from a company overseas for my son for Christmas. So he went in and updated all of his information, and they immediately had our debit card information then. So these things, and he's a 20-year military man. You wouldn't think he would fall for that, but it was very convincing. It looked very real. And again, we were waiting on a package, so it seemed to be legit. Phishing is, they spend a lot of time and money, time and effort in making those emails and texts look real. So you really need to do your homework and be careful before you click on any link or give any information. Ransomware is another significant threat that you need to be aware of. It's when criminals lock you out of your own system and then need money or ask for money in order to unlock your system for you. So it's happened to many, many businesses. It's on the news all the time, right? A lot of times, I don't even think they put it on the news anymore because it happens so much with large businesses. So you definitely need to be careful, be thoughtful on those things as well. While these all sound very scary, the good news is that they can be prevented with some basic security measures, which we're going to cover next. Okay. So some essential security measures. Let's kind of focus on the fundamentals first. The security equivalent of washing your hands, which we all do, especially this time of year until our little fingers are bloody and pulling apart from the from the skin. These are this is what you need to think of as for digital, these are the fundamentals, just like washing your hands, just like locking your doors. Strong passwords are so important. I could go on and on, like with my own mother, who still uses the easiest password 1 2 3 on things, and I'm like, no, mom, you can't use that anymore. You have to really think about the passwords and realize that those who are trying to hack into your system spend a lot of time, like I said, and a lot of effort and a lot of money to figure out those easy ones. So where childcare 1 2 3 is very easy to guess, I love running my childcare business exclamation point with all those different, capital letters and lowercase letters is much harder. Is that a perfect password, a wonderful password? It is not, but we all also know that we have 800 passwords, and sometimes you need to, think of one that you can actually remember. So just remember that when you're creating passwords that, obviously you want to make sure that it is strong, that it is something that is not easily guessable from somebody else, because it's not like a human sitting there. They're using a computer that's figuring these things up, and AI is pretty smart. So remember that. Software updates aren't just about new features. They're kind of like the immunizations for your computer. Very, very important that you do the software updates on your computers, on your tablets. If you have them in your classrooms, make sure they're set to automatically update. Enable those automatic updates whenever you can. Also, be sure that your Wi-Fi network is secure. Nobody should have that Wi-Fi password except for those in your building or those that really need to have it. So make sure that that Wi-Fi network is secure as well. Just again, as you have a system for organizing your physical classrooms in your office or your space, you need a system for organizing your digital information too. So let's think about some practical things that you can do. You can create folders just like a file folder. You can have files either on your desktop or, within your different systems that you use throughout your computer to keep that sensitive data separate. I always think of when I was a director, most of the time, 90% of the time, teachers were not on my computer. However, if it was busy and I was going to do a break or something, even going on break, like I did rarely, but teacher may jump on my computer to do lesson plans or something. Those are times when I needed to make sure that, that sensitive information was locked down. So those folders that I had, all of those things were secure and not able to be, just open for all of the staff. When it comes to your staff, give them access to only the information that they need. They do not, your cook does not need access to all of the family's financial records. Just like your bookkeeper doesn't need access to your children's daily reports. Same kind of thought. So if the staff make their lesson plans on your computer, if it's a shared computer, make sure you have a way to lock down those things that they don't need to be seeing. The slides will not be available for this, I see in the chat. However, this is being recorded and it will be posted to our YouTube and also for DECAL's Thriving Childcare Business Academy as well. Okay, so secure communications with families. We talked about the great things. You don't have to write out those daily reports anymore like we used to. Being able to communicate with the families digitally is wonderful, but it's also very important to be secure in that as well. Parents expect quick updates, but you need to balance that with convenience and security combined, right? They're both very, very important. Consider secure messaging apps if you are messaging them. Most of the childcare apps that you're using should have a secure way that you're able to, the parents log in from their side, you log in from your side. But if you're not using one of those apps, this is where you really need to consider how you are messaging your family. So most of the time, again, apps have built-in security features, which are great, which is the reason why a lot of times they cost money. So, a crucial point in that is if you receive an unusual request, even it's from from a family, reach out to that family and see if that's really them. Again, there are so many things going around, and I'm sure you all have heard of them as well. They can use the AI voice that sounds like the person actually calling you, and it's really not. Again, not to scare you, but there are so many different ways that these criminals are really trying to hack into your systems. So it's very, very important that if you get, say, an email from someone that's requesting, sensitive information, that you pick up the phone and call that person, and that you're able to verify that that is really from that parent. So money, right? Money requires more attention. Payments, again, I was like beyond thrilled when I became a director and we got a childcare management system and I didn't have to chase the families down anymore. But it's very, very important that if you are accepting tuition payments or processing subsidies, that your system is secure. Choose a well-known, reputable system that specializes in business transactions. Invest in some sort of system like that so that you don't have to worry about trying to build that yourself. Never write down someone's credit card information. If they're giving it to you, type it right into your system. Do not write it down. It's not potentially just risky, but it could also be illegal. So keep that in mind as well. You want to make sure that you're protecting them, but then you're also protecting yourself as well. Putting security into practice. So we have covered the foundations of security. Now we're going to talk about how do you put them into practice? What do you do? I've scared you. Now let's give you some ways that you can kind of fix things. So I mentioned earlier, training your staff, taking time to talk about cybersecurity with your team is very important if you have a team. You can have the best system in place, but if your teacher sits down on the computer that's used for, lesson planning and she clicks on the link that she randomly sees, no matter what great system you have, it's shot right there, right? So you want to make sure that even if you have a state-of-the-art system, that you are talking about that to your staff, especially, like I said, if they all have their own tablets or something in their classrooms. Training doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to use technical big words. You need to talk to them so that they understand the importance of how are they able to, or are they able to post pictures of children? That is a cybersecurity topic that you need to talk about. A lot of times, like we mentioned, there are specific instances where children cannot be posted online no matter what. So definitely need to make sure that your staff is well aware of that. It may be the cutest picture ever of, the three little children in front of the pumpkin or whatever, and you send that out to those three families, but the one in the middle has some sort of, parent issue going on and they can't be posted. It actually happened to me. The dad made it. The dad, he thought it was so cute. He put it as his background or whatever it's called on your Facebook, like the back picture. And it had a child on there who wasn't even allowed to be on the internet. So keep that in mind. Very, very important. Email safety is also crucial to talk about with your staff. Again, don't click on the links. Device policies you should have if you are, putting devices in your classrooms or in the hands of your staff. You should have policies in place for them to make sure that they are, following the procedures that you put in place. And finally, you want to make sure that everyone knows what to do if they suspect a problem. There's nothing worse than somebody, clicking on the link and then being like, I don't want to tell anyone. And then who knows, what's going on in the background of your computer. So definitely want to, keep that in mind. Remember that regularly talking about these things, and again, share my story. The girl who, the lady who led the webinar said her husband he's a retired military man and it happened to him. Share those stories so that people know it does happen. It doesn't matter what your education level is. It doesn't matter, how many years you've been working. It happens to everyone, to a lot of people. So make sure that they're all very aware of that. Just as you have, again, those daily opening procedures and closing procedures for your childcare business, you should also have those regular security procedures as well. So you want to make sure that they're practical, that they're manageable. You want to start with some simple checks, like maybe even a checklist like you do with your opening and closing procedures. Make sure your computers are locked whenever you get up and leave. Verify that you are the only one, or if you're not the only one that uses that computer, that you know exactly who is using that computer, to ensure that that sensitive information is not being shared or being put in the wrong hands. You should check weekly run those security warnings on your computers, have an antivirus on your computer, making sure that, nothing is following you or tracking you on your computers. You should, again, maybe monthly, take a deeper look, review who has access to your systems, especially if there's a way for staff to log in remotely. Review monthly, if not more. We all know in childcare the rate of turnover, and we also know how crazy busy everyone is. Sometimes you may forget for a good 3 to 6 months, and Sarah, who you fired last month, still has access to get into your bright wheel and just be nosy and see what's going on. Not to say that, she would do anything, but again, she does not need to have access to that from that point forward. So again, just have a schedule, have a procedure for yourself to make sure, and maybe that's something that you add to, as a staff member leaves, this is something, take them off the ProCare or Brightwheel or whatever it is that you use to make sure that they're not able to log in remotely. So no one likes to think about things going wrong, but like I said at the beginning, sometimes they do, right? So you want to make sure that you have some sort of plan. A security incident could be anything from a lost device to, that has some family information on it, to a suspicious email that, Miss Judy sat down and accidentally clicked on, and she feels so bad, but it's done. Now what do you do? Your response is almost just as important as, something happening, because again, just like having a plan for, a child that falls and gets hurt, you need to have a plan for what happens if something cybersecurity could affect your business. It is very, very important that you isolate that incident as soon as it happens, that you take steps to fix the problem as soon as it happens. If there is a way that, you are able to unhook that computer from the rest of your, if they're all connected with the system or whatever, very important that you do that. You want to make sure you document what the link looked like, especially if it is, if there's a way that they could potentially, heaven forbid, have your parents, financial information. You want to make sure you know exactly what that link looked like, so that when you do talk to your bank, you're able to tell them. And again, the more information you have, the better. Clear communication is vital. As much as you may not want to tell your families that something happened, you have to, right? You have to. They need to know if their data was potentially impacted. The way that you talk to them, the way that you handle that could be the difference between them sticking around or them being like, this is crazy, I can't believe this happened and they didn't tell me, and they find someplace else to take their children. So very, very important. Again, not just for the legal perspective, but also that trust of those families. So documentation is particularly important for childcare businesses because of all of that sensitive information that I mentioned earlier. If there is an incident and information does fall into the wrong hands, again, documentation is very, very important. So keep detailed records of what happened, when it happened, and what actions you took. That documentation will hopefully help to protect you as the business owner or manager. And then your business will hopefully be able to help to prevent this from happening in the future as well. Again, so responding to families, and again, I just kind of talked about it a little bit before I flip this slide, but it is so very important that you are upfront and honest with your families if something does happen with their information. Parents trust you with their children every day, and also with their information every day. So maintaining that trust and transparency is so, so very important. Be open and honest with them. and as soon as you possibly can by by gathering all of the facts, by documenting as much as you can, and then by also, again, being as transparent as possible. It really will make a difference to your families if their information is included in this. The message to the family should be clear, should not, this may have happened and I don't really want to say it, it needs to be clear. Look, this is what happened. We apologize for this. It needs to be timely and it needs to be action oriented. This is what happened. This is what I'm doing right now to fix this problem. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me here, or you can reach out to, whatever it might be. Don't use technical jargon. Don't use, big terms. Just get to the point. And again, it makes the world of difference for families. Remember to follow up with them as well. You may get notice the next day, nothing happened, everything was good, and then you go about your business. Make sure to follow up with those families too. They could be frantically worrying that their information is out there. So the ongoing communication shows that you take their security seriously and their privacy seriously. So again, very, very important. So budget, like I just said earlier, let's be real. Nobody has tons of money, right? So what do you do so that you can help protect your business without breaking the bank? Many small childcare businesses operate on very thin margins, something else we talk about in our small study groups. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to have or don't have to think about having good cybersecurity, because you definitely do. You want to start with as many built-in tools as you possibly can. Use what you already have. If you already have, a computer, chances are it has updates that should be automatically, updating. So make sure you have those. Make sure you are enabling any firewalls. Make sure you have some sort of basic antivirus protection for your computer. And then learn to use those effectively before investing in thousands of dollars of equipment for all of your classrooms and new computers for everyone. Make sure that if you do decide to invest in all of those things, that you also realize that that security piece also may cost a little bit of money as well, and that you have that budgeted for those things. If you're going to use paid services, focus on what matters most. You don't need the same thing that, say, like Citibank has. Chances are you don't need that much. But you definitely want to make sure that the security that you are purchasing, if you are, it focuses on what you do need. So look for providers offering small business help, nonprofit discounts if you're a nonprofit. Definitely important to keep those things in mind when you're looking around. So understanding that security is important, is taking action is crucial. We're going to now talk about some specific steps that you can implement today, even with some limited resources. You may feel like, I don't have any resources right now. That's okay. We're going to talk about a few things that you can do. So, security tools. Oops, I'm sorry. I just messed up my slide. Let's dive into some specific security tools that you can use. Some of them I've already mentioned, but you definitely want to make sure that you are looking into and realize the importance of that antivirus, that password manager. Like I said earlier, remembering passwords is enough to make you want to pull your hair out. So definitely having some sort of password manager is very helpful, because not only do you have your personal passwords, but your work passwords too, and they shouldn't be the same. I should have put that in the slide deck, but I didn't. They shouldn't all be the same. So definitely a password manager is also something that's very good to look into. You also should look into some way to back up your data. If it is, if it's on your computer, I know we had said in the chat earlier, and I was also one that still, I'm old school. I like to have the boxes of the files and the writing and the paper and all of that. But whatever your procedure is for that, you need to still have a backup digitally. So if something happens, you have some way to find that. In the cloud, I don't know. I'm not technical where the stuff goes in the cloud. I don't know if it's floating over us. It seems, but the cloud is definitely a great way to back up your information, and it's there. Um, oh, Emily, FYI, your slides are not visible. Can everybody else see my slides? Yes. Emily, I'm so sorry. Hold on. Sorry, everyone. Spanish room apparently has not been able to see my slides. Aaron, you can't see my slides?
I can see your slides currently.
Hmm. Okay. Aaron, can you check if you can see them in the Spanish room?
Um,
I don't know if you can do that.
did you hear Emily just say I can hear them or I can see them now?
No, I did not hear her
Oh,
say that. So, okay, perfect.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Want to make sure everybody can see everything. Okay. So backups, you want to consider again the cloud, whatever that, wherever that stuff goes, I don't know. Also free. Think of free. Google Drive has a lot of free options. They have their Google Docs, their Google Sheets, their, all of those things. But you can use a Google Drive or a Microsoft OneDrive that also can be used. There are, a lot of things that you can pay for with those, but you also can look for the free or cheap versions of those as well. So keep those in mind. Okay, so device security. We talked about devices. A lot of them have, a lot of you, if you are in a center, probably have devices all in your classrooms, everywhere, whether it be for the children and or the staff. Each device in your childcare business that connects to the internet is a potential entry point of security problems. So let's talk about securing these devices. You want to make sure that they, again, have those automatic updates enabled, that they lock after a few minutes of inactivity, and that you then have to go back in with like a little password. It can just be a, short little password. It doesn't have to be anything long. And that an antivirus is running on those computers, okay? For mobile devices and tablets, you want to make sure you're using stronger passwords for those. Biometric locks, whether that be the facial recognition. Sometimes there's the fingerprint ones. Enable those. That's really a strong, obviously strong password protected as well. And if something is lost or stolen, you want to try to wipe that information as quickly as you possibly can. If you're able to, if the information's logged or saved in the cloud, then you should be able to go in and kind of take it off of or delete that machine or that, I can't even think of what word I'm looking for, that computer or whatever, if it's lost or stolen. The Wi-Fi network needs to be also something that you kind of focus on. It should not have a super easy password that everybody can guess. If your childcare is ABC childcare, your password for your Wi-Fi should not be ABC childcare. It should be something that nobody's going to be able to guess. So set a strong password. You can also look into having an encryption, which is also an option. And then we also suggest that you have a separate Wi-Fi for you and your staff and your families. So, not everybody's coming in and getting on the same Wi-Fi. Really, I mean, I don't know why many families would need to get on Wi-Fi inside of your childcare business. They shouldn't, be, I don't know. I guess maybe they could, but if they do, then I would suggest having separate Wi-Fi passwords. Data organization, it's not just about, having those files. Again, it's really about the security of those files. You can organize your business digitally in a way that makes sense for you, but is also only accessible to the right people. Like we've said, you want to create those folders, make sure they're locked, about who does need access to what, because again, not everybody needs access to it, and regularly and review that information and clean up those files. Delete or archive any information that's not needed. If you have a family that left 5 months ago, you shouldn't still have their, payment information saved in your computer. You can archive that information or move that information somewhere so that it is not just saved there in your computer. Secure remote access, whether you are checking in from home or managing. This is what I was talking about earlier. And it's great, right? A lot of times your staff or even you are able to log on, and whether you're doing your lesson, they're doing their lesson planning, or you're logging in and you're doing some work, you are still logging in from the outside. So you need to make sure that that is protected. You need to make sure that, again, if you're working from home, that you're using a secure Wi-Fi, that you have, potentially even a VPN, which is a virtual private network. Don't ask me any more about that, because that's about all I know about them. But I know that, it definitely is something that protects you, and it is going to not show where you are or who you are when you're logging in to your system remotely. Also, set clear guidelines for who and when your staff can log in remotely. They should not be logging in on their day off to check and see, what the children are doing in their classrooms. It should be something that is in your policies and procedures, or maybe even your employee handbook, when they can and cannot log in remotely. Again, documentation is so very important. Different states have different rules. I would highly suggest you reach out to and make sure that you're following those rules for DECAL. Beyond basic record keeping, it is important to not only consider, obviously, your licensing regs, but also those privacy rules as well. If you accept credit cards, most of the time it's still going to be on a piece of paper, but make sure you shred that piece of paper. Make sure you're, keeping everything legal, as far as, holding on to those parents' information. And then document your security procedures as well, those responses that you do take, and any staff training that you do. Make sure you are documenting that as well. A crisis communication plan is kind of like an emergency evacuation plan. You hope that you will never going to need it, but you might, so you should have one. It does not have to be, this big. It could be a one-page document, but you want to make sure that you're maintaining an up-to-date list of who needs to be contacted if something happens. So is it the bank? Is it your IT professional? Is it, legal counsel? Is it DECAL? Who needs to be contacted if different security incidents happen there at your childcare business. And then you should prepare some sort of template for any sort of different type of incident. That way it makes it easy for you to send something out to your families, if there is some sort of potential incident with that information that you have for those families. So before we look at, any sort of specific resources, just thinking about, your security journey, think about kind of planning this with any other improvements for your childcare business. You need to start off kind of where you are. You need to think about not doing everything all at once, but you need to kind of walk before you run with this. So even if you start off very small and just think about who has access to my computer, that's important. What kind of passwords am I using? That's important. Those are the types of little changes you can make today for free that are really going to help you to kind of spot the gaps along the way. There again, it doesn't have to be a huge technical plan that you create, but it's just something, potentially small with your passwords, your practices of who all's allowed to be on everybody's computer, that those types of things. All of those little things are very, very important. Security, again, is like any other aspect of running your childcare business. It needs attention regularly and in order for it to run well. So if you're looking to maintain these security measures, you want to make sure that you're not getting overwhelmed. Again, starting off small is very important. Think about, again, it's like regular car maintenance for your car. You have to get your oil changed. You have to, put gas in your car. Same thing for your security measures for your childcare business. It's very, very important that no matter how small what you're going to do is, that you're doing something. You don't have to figure out security all by yourself either. Obviously, you're attending this webinar, which is wonderful, but there are so many, many resources out there as well. You could definitely look into an IT support desk. You could also, there are government guidelines as well. You can find those online. You can look at your child care association resources. You can also look online for online security tools. Online, you're going to find a ton of information of how to do these basic security measures, and also how to do them on a budget, because I know that probably most of you need to be on a budget, and that's extremely normal. So some key takeaways before we move on to our Q&A session. Always use a strong password. Always try to have different user accounts for different people if multiple people are using the same computer. Keep your software system updated and on a system that's automatically updating it. Regularly run and a backup on your important information, and also train your staff if you have staff. Have a plan for what you're going to do if something does happen. Again, it doesn't have to take you, a month and be this thick, but it should have, you should have something in writing that you're able to have a plan for if and when something could potentially happen. So good security isn't just about expensive tools and expensive software. It is about being consistent and using these little ways that we gave you to protect you and protect the children and the families in your care. So start with those basics that we covered today. Don't get overwhelmed, but little by little, you will be able to make your business more secure and, again, protect those families and those children that are in your care. Now we are on to questions.